Oh look, we're psychoanalyzing Sleep Token again, biblical themes, Greek allegories, and sex. This should be fun. Join the conversation on episode 218 of Heavy Metal Philosophy. Welcome, metalheads. I'm the host of Heavy Metal Philosophy and writer for Metal Digest, Jon Barbas. Make sure you stick around to the end of the episode for this week's Riff of the Week. Now, before we get started, let's set some expectations. This is not a review of Even in Arcadia. My full review will be written and published with Metal Digest. This episode is a philosophy and analysis episode. So let's analyze the ideas and themes on Even in Arcadia, and we'll start with the opening track, Look to Winward. The album opens with a charming Legend of Zelda, I'm talking Super NES era-esque chiptune intro. And to me, this is the audio representation of the exciting journey that Sleep Token, and in particular Vessel, has been on for the past couple of years. And the line that immediately stands out to me the most is, quote, losing this war of attrition. The word attrition is mentioned multiple times on the record, in particular on Caramel. Vessel feels like he survived an ordeal, and this is logical if you consider where they were at to where they are now. If you watch the first Philosophy of Sleep Token episode, I made the point that most of their music is about toxic relationships. When you look back on some of your toxic relationships in the past, does surviving it feel triumphant, or do you have survivor's guilt? And then, of course, there's the constant refrain of this song, will you halt the eclipse in me? Like a lot of Sleep Token lyrics, I think this has dual meaning. I think not only is Vessel asking the subject of the song, but also asking himself. An eclipse is the obscuring of the light, and Vessel is asking himself, does he think that this person will halt the obscuring of the light inside? And then there's Emergence. This is the quintessential pop song of the record, complete with its EDM refrain of go ahead and wrap your arms around me, trap beats, and whoop accents, but it's also the most relatable song on the record. This lyric in particular, and you might be the one to take away my pain and let my mind go quiet, and nothing else is quite the same as how I feel when I'm at your side. Sometimes direct lyrics are more powerful than the cryptic and poetic ones. When I'm with my woman, I'm not thinking about my problems at work or my tumultuous childhood or the fact that there were just two nuclear-armed countries in India and Pakistan that were going to war with each other this weekend. In those moments with my woman, and only those moments, my mind is quiet. I think Past Self is a song indicating that Vessel is no longer the person that he used to be. And how could he be after the past couple of years he's had? And it's not all bad either. He's successful beyond his wildest dreams, and his art is touching millions of people. And so the word dance really stands out to me here. The word dance or dancing shows up in 5 different songs on Even in Arcadia. That's half the record. And again, Sleep Token lyrics often have a dual meaning. So I think Vessel means this in a positive connotation, as in dancing for fun, dancing to celebrate, dancing for love, dancing with the people we love. But he also means it in a negative connotation. We'll get to it in Caramel, but sometimes a dance is a performance. It's not real. Sometimes people dance because it's their job, and Vessel will dance because that's what's expected of him. That's why people love him. Dance, Vessel, dance. And there's also a semi-secret message at the end of the song. The chorus once again hints at the idea that Vessel is not the same person he used to be. Quote, Are you gonna dance on the line with me? You know it's not a game or a fantasy, and I don't even know who I used to be, but nothing is the same, and some things have to change now. But then, after the last chorus ends, in the background of the outro music, somewhat distorted, almost like he's underwater, Vessel gives the message, I just don't want to be lost again. This part is obscured or underwater sounding, almost as if it's his inner voice. Or maybe he just doesn't want the subject of the song to hear his doubt, because Vessel is worried that, yes, now he's a bigger and better person, but anything could happen that could drag him back down. Now, Dangerous is a song that I can picture in my mind's eye millions of women singing along to in their cars. Why do humans keep getting involved in relationships that they know are bad for them, especially women who are more vulnerable? Well, the answer is people don't want to be in boring relationships. And a lot of misguided men will take this to mean that women only date assholes. No, you don't have to be an asshole to be attractive. You need to be interesting and challenging and capable. I brought it up on the first Philosophy of Sleep Token episode. Vessel represents a quite attractive archetype for women. He's dark and he's brooding and he's talented. He's got a successful career, but despite that, he's always thinking about his love. Now, that description would also describe a lot of the main characters in fantasy books, the sort that you would hear about in women's book clubs. The main character is always a damaged badass, usually a royal, but he'll protect his love with his life. And eventually, through the ordeals they go through together, he becomes a better person. And look, I'm not saying that's the healthiest fantasy in the world. People rarely change. And men aren't immune to this either. Lots of us think we can be Captain Save-A-Ho. You ain't changing her. You cannot control her. It's only going to be dangerous for you. And further, you shouldn't want to change or control your woman. If it's going to work in the long run, then it shouldn't require manipulation or rules. Your partner's personality should be compatible with your life such that you don't need rules. Back on topic, the song once again ends with a refrain, quote, "Won't you show me how to dance forever?" And this, of course, is a false hope because people don't change. Once again, Vessel is doubting. You really think this is going to work out? This relationship that you've admitted is dangerous? No, there's not going to be a happily ever after with dancing till death do we part. Dance, Vessel, dance. And speaking of danger and toxic relationships, we now come to Caramel, the single famously or perhaps notoriously calling out Sleep Token fans for their obsessive behavior. Now, hindsight is 20/20, but it seems kind of obvious in retrospect that a band whose central themes revolve around toxic relationships and obsessiveness would attract a fan base that includes people who are toxic and obsessive. And Vessel, of course, knows this, so he puts in the lyric, quote, "Too blessed to be ungrateful, I know, so I'll keep dancing along to the rhythm." Dance, Vessel, dance. Here he recognizes the double-edged sword of his success. It's not pleasant, but it's the consequence and the reward of his artistic pursuits. And so, not only do we once again have the dancing theme, but also the war of attrition. And what is a war of attrition? Well, it's a war that cannot be won by outflanking or dominating your opponent. It can only be won by surviving longer. And that's the way that Vessel views not only the journey he's been on, but also the road ahead. It's kind of bleak, but also No one goes into a war of attrition without at least a little bit of confidence and the will to survive. Now, with even in Arcadia, I really should have noticed this on their previous record, Take Me Back to Eden. Sleep Token has a lot of allegory about heaven and paradise and angels. Vessel is striving for that in his life. Arcadia is a Greek province that is historically a vision of utopia. The Buddhists believe that mental suffering comes when our expectations don't align with reality. And with that in mind, it's really no wonder that Vessel suffers. He's a hopeless romantic. He's an idealist. He's chasing heaven. And the world will more often than not disappoint and abuse people like that. And speaking of hopeless romanticism, Provider is a song that once again has Vessel embodying the archetype of what is attractive to women. He nakedly and without pretense says in the song that he wants to be a provider.
I wanna be a provider.
And once again, I feel the need to point out something important here. I'm not saying that women are so base and simple that they're lazy and just want to be taken care of. The provider role is not just the head of the household, women should stay in the kitchen sort of image that online manosphere grifters will preach. It means safety. It means that when things are tough and scarce, you'll do what needs to be done. You'll make the necessary sacrifices. You'll do your duty. That's attractive. Dance, Vessel, dance.
But I can't always be killing the game.
Now, Damocles is a great analogy for Sleep Token. In the Greek myth of the sword of Damocles, there was this courtier named Damocles who is saying to the king Dionysius, not to be confused with the god Dionysus, oh man, you've got it so great, you're the king, you're so wealthy, you're so powerful. So the king offered to Damocles to trade places for a day. But he also arranged to have a sword hanging above the throne, suspended only by a single horsehair. So Damocles was able to experience the king's wealth and power, but also a constant sense of dread and the idea that it would only take a little bit to lose it all. Yeah, I think Vessel can relate to that story. In his lyrics, he says, quote, "Well, I know I should be touring. I know these chords are boring, but I can't always be killing the game. No golden grand pianos or voices from the shadows will do anything but feel the same. Dance, Vessel, dance."
Never saw me naked.
Gethsemane was a biblical garden in Jerusalem where Jesus went after the Last Supper. This story is known as the agony in the garden because Jesus was praying to God to deliver him from his impending suffering. But he also accepted his Father's will, his fate. Meanwhile, the song Gethsemane is about unrequited love. This is the agony of longing. This is knowing that suffering is imminent, but also accepting that it'll never work out, and this memory will stick with you forever. No one can hurt us like the ones we love. And that leads us to the album closer, Infinite Baths, which, like the opening track, features a chiptune video game-esque sort of music, only this time it's dreamy and forlorn. It's not exciting like Look to Winward. This one sounds like the end. Here we find Vessel being reflective and also getting the cold comfort of acceptance. One last allusion to dance with the lyrics, something is lifting the bones, something is dancing in revelry. And then another repeated theme. Once again, the refrain comes, will you halt the eclipse in me? Despite doing so much Jungian shadow work on himself, Vessel still wants an answer to his darkness. Then probably the heaviest moment of the album comes where Vessel retakes the mantle that he's been running from this whole time. Quote, teeth of God, blood of man, I will be what I am. Dance, Vessel, dance.